Now we have Prof. Tijdens. Tijdens is from University of Amsterdam, and now more and more from Wage Indicator Foundation as well. And Kea is, by the way, the person who has been designing the collective agreement database. So she's reasonable in the know of systems and systems. Welcome, Kea. Welcome, take the floor, and Niels will set your presentation, your PowerPoint. So good luck. Where are you? And make sure we can hear you.
Yes, welcome everybody. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, my name is Kea Tijdens. I'm from Wage Indicator Foundation, and previously I was from the University of Amsterdam. And I've been involved in quite a number of social dialogue projects. And so my slides are about the collective agreements database that we have developed for this project. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, as the video already said, we have 10 topics in the database. That is to say, we code the text of the collective agreements, and we do so topic by topic. So that means we first detect whether there's, for example, any clause on health and safety. And if there are such clauses, then subsequent questions in the coding scheme pop up to ask for details about the health and safety clauses or any other topic. So that is how basically the coding scheme for the collective bargaining agreements works. And altogether, we code more than 700 different items from the collective agreements. In addition, we do not only code the text, but we also annotate the text. So we know which part of the CBA text contains that particular clause that is coded. So from the coded text, we make a statistical database, basically an Excel file that can be accessed by statistical programs, and then we can do analysis. And what we see is that across countries, the variation of topics agreed is much larger than across industries. So within countries, industries are very similar in the number of topics that they agree. As the video already said, most CBAs include clauses about working hours and leave, because that is one of the key issues of CBAs, but not so in Turkey and the United Kingdom. Obviously, working hours and leaves are arranged in other settings than in collective agreements in these two countries. And that is what we see more often. In some countries, the legal setting is such that there's no need to agree an additional clause in the collective agreements. In other countries, this is not the case. So in 6 countries, all CBAs include clauses about sickness and disability, but none does so in Greece. In Greece, anyhow, the collective agreements are a bit poor, I would say. They cover few items, whereas in France, the CBAs cover almost all topics. In Greece, they hardly cover any topics. So basically, that is almost a kind of empty agreement. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, the wider bargaining agenda. We looked at the difference between single employer and multi-employer bargaining. So our database, so the 600 collective agreements, half of them are single employer and half of them are multi-employer bargaining, but there's large variation across countries. So the presence of multi-employer bargaining agreements vary a lot across countries. There are countries that are predominantly single employer, and there are other countries who have predominantly multi-employer agreements. And that's not surprisingly, that's what we know from other sources as well. The topics agreed in both types are rather similar, though wages and social security and pensions are more often agreed in multi-employer bargaining compared to single employer bargaining. And social security and pensions are often combined with topics about job descriptions, health and safety, and sickness and disability. So there is a kind of clustering of topics that is more, that belong to each other. And there are other topics that do not occur jointly with other clauses. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, we also looked at transnational company agreements. We coded 40 transnational company agreements. Those are agreements that are concluded at the level of the European Union or at the level of at least several countries. And they are signed by the employers associations, by the companies who have really settlements in several countries. So 20 of the 40 are concluded in manufacturing, 1/3 in commerce, and the rest in construction. We did not come across any transnational company agreement in the public sector. Most TCAs are signed by 5 global unions, and a minority is signed with European Works Councils. And it was surprising that gender equality and training topics are the most addressed topics in transnational company agreements. The other topics are far less often addressed. And if there is, for example, if there is a clause about wages, for example, in a transnational company agreement, this clause says that the company will act according to the statutory minimum wage in the country. So that is more the kind of clauses that you will come across in transnational company agreements. For 2 transnational company agreements, we could compare what the establishments of the transnational company in several countries did, what they conclude. And then it turns out that the transnational company agreement has far fewer topics than the collective agreements in the respective countries. And they are very focused on a few items that are really agreed in transnational company agreements. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, is it feasible to make a European-wide data collection of collective agreements? So far, there is no such thing. So basically, whereas the theory assumes that wages and working hours are set in collective bargaining, in the European Union and in the wider Europe, we don't know what is agreed across Europe. So can there be any coding system thought of that we can code collective bargaining agreements across Europe? Well, more than half of the countries in the European Union have a repository of binding collective bargaining agreements. And almost all of them post these agreements online, either as full text or as a PDF, or some only present the metadata, so the data, the name of the collective agreement and the signatory parties. Some repositories extract the headings from the collective agreements that they register. Some extract in an automatic way information about the content. And we think that it is doable to really set up a European-wide data collection, because 21 of the 27 EU countries have less than 1,000 collective agreements. That means that in terms of the volume of to be coded collective agreements, that seems doable. And as we have proven in our CBA database for this project, it is feasible to code collective agreements in whatever language it is, to make them comparable, to extract knowledge from the collective agreements across European countries. And it shows you exactly how collective bargaining across European countries develops. So that is basically what I would like to say.